Oh, of course. Of course it's you. People like you should not be allowed behind the wheel.
You ran the red light. You need to step back.
Because I ran it? Sweetheart, you're gonna want to get your story real straight.
I know what I saw.
Everyone, calm down. Do you have any idea who my father is?
I have a patient dying at the hospital. I'm a trauma surgeon. I need to go. Now.
Sure you are. And I'm an astronaut. Sit there and shut up till my dad gets here. He runs this whole town.
Documenting the scene. Trauma surgeon Maya.
Ha! You serious?
Vehicle impact. Visible blood.
Here's how this goes. You stop recording, you stop talking, and you turn around.
Chief, there is a child dying. We have to get to the hospital.
I can't allow that. If anybody's getting cuffed today, it's you, not my boy. Turn around!
Chief, I was helping.
Hands behind your back, now! You can't just record this. It's my right.
Officer, please.
What the?
The kid who ran the red light was already laughing. That's the part that gets you. He'd just smashed his truck into the side of her car. Glass everywhere. Her airbag had gone off in her face, and before she could even get her door open, he was out of his truck, walking toward her, and he was laughing, because he wasn't scared, not even a little. And in about 40 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why. You're going to understand who his daddy was, and you're going to understand who her daddy was. And when those two things land in the same intersection, on the same afternoon, in front of the same witnesses, somebody's whole life is going to end right there on the asphalt. It just won't be hers. Let me set it up for you, because every second of this matters. Her name was Dr. Maya Tate, 38 years old, and she was having the worst possible day to get hit by a truck. 20 minutes earlier, her phone had gone off. The hospital. A trauma alert. A 9-year-old boy pulled out of a wrecked car on the highway, internal bleeding, coming into her ER hot. And Dr. Maya Tate was the on-call trauma surgeon, the one who opens kids up and stops the bleeding, the one who keeps them breathing. They needed her. A child was dying, and they needed her. And she was already in her car, already moving, doing 70 in a 40 because a 9-year-old's clock was running. And then a kid in a jacked-up truck blew a red light at the corner of 5th and Marlowe and drove straight into the side of her. So now Dr. Maya Tate is sitting in a wrecked car with a child dying 12 minutes away. And a laughing 22-year-old is walking up to her window. Remember the boy in the ER. That clock is running under this entire story. We're going to come back to him. Hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what happens at this intersection is going to flip on you 3 different times, and you do not want to miss who steps out of that last car. The kid reached her window. He bent down. He looked at her, and his face changed. The laugh got meaner. "Oh," he said, "of course." 2 words. Of course. Like her face explained the whole accident. Like the crash made sense to him now. Maya looked back at him, calm, blood on her lip from the airbag, hands already up where he could see them, because that's a thing her father taught her a long time ago. And we'll get to that, because it's the saddest part of this whole story. "You ran the light," she said, quiet, steady. "You need to step back, and we need to call this in." The kid laughed again. "Lady," he said, "I'm not calling anything in. You're gonna want to get your story straight, because do you know who my father is?" And there it was, the 5 words. The 5 words that men like this one have been saying for 100 years. Do you know who my father is? He had no idea he was about to find out the answer to his own question. And it was going to be the worst answer of his life. His name was Chase Dunlap, and his father was the chief of police. Not a cop. The chief. Roy Dunlap, chief of police. Town of Marlowe, 18 years on the force. The last 9 running the whole thing. The man whose name was on the building. The man who decided which speeding tickets disappeared and which ones stuck. And Chase Dunlap had spent 22 years learning one lesson over and over until it was the only thing he really knew. Nothing he did was ever his fault. He'd wrecked 2 cars before this one. Daddy fixed it. He'd been picked up at a party where there were drugs. Daddy made it go away. He'd put his hands on a girlfriend once, and her family had thought about pressing charges, and then somehow, quietly, they didn't. Daddy, daddy, daddy. Chase Dunlap had never once in his life seen a consequence walk all the way up to him and stay. Until today. Today he'd been doing 60 in his truck, looking at his phone, coming back from lunch with a couple of beers in him, and he'd blown a red light he didn't even see, and he'd hit a woman who was rushing to save a child's life. And the first thing he did, the very first thing, was get out of his truck and decide it was her fault. Because in Chase Dunlap's whole world, the accident is never the guy who caused it. The accident is the person it happened to. So he stood at her window, and he pulled out his phone, and he called the one number that had fixed everything his entire life. "Dad?" he said. "Yeah. I got in a little thing. 5th and Marlowe." No, I'm fine. The truck's fine, mostly. But listen, the other driver." He looked right at Maya when he said it. "It's gonna be one of those. You're going to want to come down here yourself." One of those. He looked at her skin and he told his father, the chief of police, that this was going to be one of those. Maya heard it. She heard every word. And she did the thing she always did. The thing that had kept her alive through every traffic stop and every late-night drive home her whole life. She picked up her own phone. And she started recording. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. She held the phone low, steady, and she narrated calm and clear for the camera. "My name is Dr. Maya Tate. It is 1:47 in the afternoon. I am at 5th and Marlowe. The driver of the white truck ran the red light and struck my vehicle. He has called his father, who he says is the chief of police. I am unhurt except for minor injuries from the airbag. I am being cooperative. I have a patient at Marlowe General who needs me, and I am being prevented from leaving." Chase watched her do it, and he laughed. "You think that little video's gonna help you?" He shook his head. "Sweetheart, you have no idea where you are right now." He was right about one thing. There were things happening at that intersection that nobody could see yet. But he had the direction exactly backwards. He thought the ground belonged to him. He was standing on a fault line, and it was about to open up right under his feet. Now, while we wait for the chief to arrive, and he's coming, he's 3 minutes out, I want you to notice the other people at that intersection, because they're going to matter, every one of them. There was a delivery driver, young guy, maybe 25, named Cody. He'd pulled over the second he saw the crash, because that's what decent people do. He was standing by his car now, and he had something nobody had noticed yet, a dash cam. Running, pointed straight at the intersection. It had caught the whole thing, the white truck, the red light, the speed, all of it, in clean color, with a timestamp. But Cody was scared. He'd heard the kids say, "My dad's the chief." And Cody lived in Marlowe. Cody had to keep living in Marlowe. And a little voice in Cody's head was already saying the thing that little voice always says. Don't get involved. Keep your head down. It's not your fight. Remember Cody. Remember the little voice. We'll see which one wins. Then there was a paramedic crew just arriving, an ambulance rolling up to the scene. And there was a woman across the street, sweeping the sidewalk in front of her shop, who had stopped sweeping and was watching with her arms crossed and a look on her face that said she'd seen this movie before and she knew how it usually ended. And then there was the first cop. He got there before the chief. young officer, maybe 26, name of Aaron Doyle, 2 years on the Marlowe force. And Aaron Doyle was about to be put in the worst spot of his short career, because Aaron Doyle was a decent kid who'd taken the job for decent reasons, and Aaron Doyle was about to watch his chief's son lie and have to decide what he was made of. Doyle stepped out of his cruiser. He looked at the scene. He was good at his job. He could read it in 5 seconds. The white truck's nose was caved in on the front left, the way a vehicle hits when it's the one that ran into something. Maya's car was crushed on the side, the way a car looks when it gets hit. The skid marks told the rest. Doyle knew, before he said a single word, exactly who'd run that light. But then Chase walked up to him, easy, loose, hands in his pockets, and said, "Hey Doyle, my dad's on his way. This lady ran the light and clipped me. I'm fine. We just need to get her information and figure out what kind of insurance somebody like her even has." And Officer Aaron Doyle looked at the chief's son, and he looked at the evidence, and he felt his stomach drop. Because he knew what was being asked of him. He was being asked to see it Chase's way. He went to Maya's window instead. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" "I'm a doctor," Maya said. "I'm fine, but I'm the on-call trauma surgeon at Marlowe General, and I have a critical pediatric patient coming in right now. I need someone to either let me go or get me an escort, because a 9-year-old is going to die if I'm not in that operating room in the next 10 minutes. Please." Doyle's eyes went wide, because that he could check. That was real or it wasn't, and it'd be easy to find out. "Can I see your ID, ma'am?" "It's in my bag. I'm going to reach for it slowly." She reached, slow, narrating it, hands visible the whole time, and she handed him her license. Doyle looked at it. And here's where the first little crack appeared, because Officer Aaron Doyle read the name on that license, and something flickered across his face. A flicker of weight. The name was Tate. And Aaron Doyle had been to enough trainings, seen enough brass at enough podiums, to know that name. To know there was a very, very important man in this state, with that exact last name. He looked up at her. "Tate," he said, careful. "Any relation to—" And that's when Chief Roy Dunlap's cruiser came around the corner, lights flashing, and skidded to a stop, and the whole thing got 10 times worse. Chief Roy Dunlap got out of his car like he owned the road, which, in Marlowe, he basically did. Big man, sunglasses, the walk of a guy who'd never been told no in this town. He went straight to his son first, not to the scene, not to the victim, to his son, and put a hand on Chase's shoulder. "You okay, bud?" "I'm fine, Dad." She came out of nowhere. "She came out of nowhere," the chief repeated, nodding, like it was already in the report, like it was already true because his son said it. And right there, in front of the paramedics, and Cody, and the woman with the broom, and his own young officer, the chief of police decided the outcome of the investigation before he'd looked at one piece of evidence. Doyle stepped up. "Chief, I looked at the vehicles, the damage patterns, the skid marks. It looks like the truck—" "Doyle!" The chief didn't even turn his head. "Did I ask you?" "No, sir, but—" "Then write down what my son tells you. He's the one that was here. She was here too. She was right there." But the chief hadn't looked at her once. Not once. He'd looked at his son. He'd looked at the trucks. He had not looked at the woman with blood on her lip sitting in the wrecked car. She was furniture to him, same as the cleaning lady was furniture to the bank manager, same as the little girl was furniture to the flight attendant. The powerful keep making the same mistake over and over in every story. They decide the most important person in the room isn't even a person. Maya got out of her car, slow, hands visible, and she spoke up, calm, but loud enough now for everyone to hear. Chief Dunlap, my name is Dr. Maya Tate. I'm a trauma surgeon. Your son ran the red light at high speed and struck my vehicle. There's a delivery driver right there who may have it on camera, and I have a child dying at your town's hospital who needs me on the table right now. So I am asking you, as the officer in charge, to do your job. Investigate the scene properly, and let me go save a life. The chief turned to her. Finally. And he smiled, the kind of smile that has no warmth in it at all. Ma'am, he said, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna calm down. You're gonna stop recording. That phone, put it away. And you're gonna stop telling me how to run my scene. Because right now, the way it looks to me, you were speeding, doing 70 in a 40 by your own admission, and you ran into my son. He took a step closer. So if anybody's getting arrested here today, sweetheart, it's the lady who was driving like a maniac, not my boy. The paramedics looked at each other. Cody, by his car, gripped his phone tighter. And the boy in the ER, 12 minutes away, kept bleeding. You feel that? That hopeless feeling? That's on purpose. That's how it's supposed to feel right here. Because I need you to feel exactly how alone Maya Tate was at that intersection. The man in charge had already decided. His son was lying and grinning. The young cop who knew the truth had just been shut down in front of everybody. The witness was too scared to talk, and there was a clock running on a child's life that nobody with a badge seemed to care about. This is the part of the story where, in real life, most of the time, the powerful win. Let's be honest about that. This is the part where the chief's son walks, and the doctor gets a ticket she has to fight for a year, and the truth just quietly disappears into a drawer in a building with the chief's name on it. That's how it usually goes. But not today, because Chief Roy Dunlap was about to do the one thing he should never, ever have done. He decided to put her in handcuffs. Turn around, he said. Hands behind your back. You're being detained for reckless driving while I sort this out. Chief, I'm telling you, there is a child. Turn around. And Maya Tate, trauma surgeon, calm under more pressure than this man had felt in his whole soft life, turned around, slowly, hands behind her back, because her father taught her the rule, and the rule was older than her career. And older than her degrees. And it went like this. Survive the stop first. You can't win an argument with a man who's scared of you and has a badge and a gun. So you don't argue. You comply. You keep your hands where they can see them. You get home alive. And then we fight. Survive first, baby. Then we win. Her father taught her that. And here is the part of the story I told you was the saddest. Here it is. Her father had to teach her that rule, even though her father was the most powerful police officer in the entire state. Because it didn't matter. All his rank, all his power, all those years in uniform, none of it could ride in the car with his daughter. None of it could stand between her and a scared man with a badge on a random Tuesday. The best he could do, the only thing he could do, was sit her down when she was 16 and teach her how to survive the very institution he had given his life to. That's the part that should sit in your chest. A man who ran the state police. And he still had to give his daughter the talk. So she turned around. And the chief reached for his cuffs. And that's when the third car arrived. It was a black SUV. No town markings. State plates. It came up 5th Street, slow and quiet. No siren, didn't need one. And it pulled in behind the chief's cruiser and stopped. And 2 state troopers got out of the front. Crisp uniforms. The kind of uniforms that make local cops stand up a little straighter without thinking about it. They didn't rush. They just took up positions, one on each side, the way you do when you're protecting somebody important. Chief Dunlap paused, cuffs in his hand. He squinted at the SUV. He didn't get it yet. Then the back door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, older, 60s, silver at the temples. He wore a dark suit, not a uniform, but he didn't need a uniform, because the way he carried himself was the uniform. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at the scene. The wrecked cars, the troopers, the paramedics, the chief with the handcuffs in his hand, and the woman standing there with her wrists behind her back, and every drop of color drained out of Chief Roy Dunlap's face, because Chief Roy Dunlap knew exactly who that man was. Every cop in the state knew who that man was. His picture was in every precinct. His name was on the certification every officer in the state carried. He was the man who could promote a chief, and the man who could end one. Colonel Tate, Dunlap said, and his voice came out wrong. Small. Sir, what are you? Colonel Solomon Tate, Superintendent of the State Police, the single highest-ranking law enforcement officer in the state. The man Chief Roy Dunlap answered to all the way up the chain. The man whose office could investigate Dunlap, decertified Dunlap, marched Dunlap out of the building his own name was on. That man was now walking across the intersection at 5th and Marlowe. And he wasn't looking at the chief. He wasn't looking at the cars. He was looking at the woman in handcuffs. Chase Dunlap, who still didn't understand anything, who never understood anything, actually piped up. Who's this guy? Dad, who is... Chase. The chief grabbed his son's arm. Chase, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth right now. Too late. Colonel Solomon Tate walked straight past the chief, straight past the lying son. He walked to the woman in handcuffs, and his hard face cracked just a little, just at the eyes. Maya, he said, baby, are you hurt? And Dr. Maya Tate, calm through the crash, calm through the cuffs, calm through all of it, felt her chin tremble for the first time, and she said, "Hi, Daddy." If you have ever wanted to see a powerful man understand in real time that he has destroyed himself, watch Chief Roy Dunlap's face in the next 10 seconds, because it hit him in stages. You could see each one land. First, that's the superintendent. The most powerful cop in the state is standing at my scene. Second, he called her Maya. She called him Daddy. That's his daughter. The woman I just put in handcuffs is the superintendent's daughter. Third, and this was the one that broke him, I told my son to lie. I refused to look at the evidence. I shut down my own officer. I called her sweetheart. I was about to arrest her, and he heard all of it. He saw all of it. He's been standing right there. The chief's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The handcuffs were still in his hand, and he looked down at them like he didn't know how they'd gotten there, and he closed them and fumbled them back onto his belt with shaking fingers. Colonel Tate turned the cuffs question into nothing. He just reached over and gently moved his daughter's hands back to her sides, because they'd never actually been locked, and he looked at her wrists, and then he turned around, and now he looked at the chief. "Chief Dunlap," he said. His voice was very quiet. Quiet, the way deep water is quiet. "Walk me through what happened here. Take your time. I'd like to understand exactly what I just watched." "Colonel, my son was involved in a collision, and I responded, and..." "Your son?" "Yes, sir. You responded to a collision involving your own son." Tate let that sit. "And you were investigating it yourself. And the conclusion you reached while putting my daughter in restraints, was that the other driver was at fault." "Sir, she admitted she was speeding." "She's a trauma surgeon, Chief." Tate's voice didn't rise. It got quieter, which was worse. "She was responding to a dying child at your town's hospital, a 9-year-old. He's still on that table. Or he's not, depending on how long you kept her standing in this intersection. He turned his head a few degrees. Trooper, get Dr. Tate to Marlowe General. Lights and siren. Now. Yes, sir. One of the state troopers was at Maya's side in an instant. Doctor, with me. And Maya looked at her father. And here is who Maya Tate is. Here is the thing that makes her different from every man at that intersection, because she could have walked to that trooper's car and left them all to burn. She'd earned it. Lord knows she'd earned it. Instead, she stopped, and she looked back, not at the chief, not at her father, at Chase, the kid who'd laughed at her, the kid who'd said, of course, and one of those and somebody like her. Because Maya Tate had been a trauma surgeon for 11 years, and 11 years of looking at injured people had taught her to see injuries, really see them. And while everyone else at that intersection was busy with power and lies and handcuffs, Dr. Maya Tate had noticed something nobody else had. The way Chase was holding his right arm, the pale gray color creeping into his face under the bravado, the little wince every time he moved, the way his shirt was darker on one side than it should have been. He's hurt, Maya said. Everyone looked at her. Your son, she said to the chief. He's got a seatbelt injury and probable internal bleeding on the right side. He's been splinting that arm and going pale this whole time. He needs to be transported now, and he needs to be watched for a ruptured spleen. I'd put him in the second ambulance and I'd go now. The chief stared at her. Why? He said, and his voice broke. Why would you? Because I'm a doctor, Maya said, and I don't get to pick who I help based on how they treated me. That's the difference between your job and mine, Chief. You decided who deserved help the second you looked at my face. I don't get that luxury. I help whoever's bleeding. And then she got in the trooper's car and they ran lights and sirens all the way to Marlowe General, and Dr. Maya Tate walked into her operating room 9 minutes later and saved a 9-year-old boy's life. The boy lived. I'll tell you that now, so you can breathe. The clock that was running under this whole story, she beat it. The state police got her there in time. The same state police whose chief had nearly arrested her for the crime of being hit by a truck. She saved the boy. And then, that evening, when her shift was over, she drove to the other side of the hospital and she checked on one more patient. Chase Dunlap, who'd been rushed in with a ruptured spleen, exactly like she said, and who would have bled out at that intersection if the woman he mocked hadn't been the one person there with the eyes to see it. She didn't say anything to him. He was sleeping. She just looked at his chart, made sure he was stable, and left. He never knew she came. Some debts get paid in a room where the other person's asleep, so let me tell you how it all came down, because the dominoes fell fast, and they fell hard. Cody, the delivery driver, the scared kid with the dash cam and the little voice telling him to keep his head down, Cody made his choice. When the superintendent of the state police is standing at the scene asking for witnesses, the little voice gets a lot quieter. Cody walked up to Colonel Tate, hands shaking, and said, "Sir, I think I have the whole thing on my dash cam. The truck ran the light. He wasn't even slowing down." And he handed over the footage that ended any chance of a lie surviving. The footage showed everything. The red light, the speed, the phone in Chase's hand. There was no story to get straight anymore. There was only what happened. Chase Dunlap was charged. Reckless driving, driving under the influence. The blood test at the hospital took care of that part, and a few other things. And this time, for the first time in 22 years, his father could not make it go away. Because the case didn't stay in Marlowe. The superintendent's office took it. And there is no fixing a case that's sitting on the desk of the most powerful cop in the state, especially when his own daughter is the victim. Chase finally met the consequence that had been chasing him his whole life. It walked right up to him, and it stayed. Chief Roy Dunlap was worse. Because the superintendent's office didn't just look at the crash, they looked at Chief Dunlap, and once they started pulling threads, the whole sweater came apart. The two wrecked cars from before, the party, the girlfriend whose family changed their mind. All those times Daddy made it go away. Every one of those was now a thread, and a state investigation was pulling all of them at once. Chief Roy Dunlap was placed on leave within a week. He resigned within a month, right before they could take his certification, which is the cop version of running before they can fire you. The man whose name was on the building cleaned out his office in that same building, carried his box to his car, and drove out of Marlow, and as far as anyone knows, he never came back. His loyal sergeant, a man named Bo Pickett, who'd helped bury a few of those old cases, went down with him. That's usually how it works. The enforcers think they're protected by the boss. They find out the boss was only ever protecting himself, and Officer Aaron Doyle, the young cop who looked at the evidence and tried even when his chief shut him down, Aaron Doyle told the truth to the investigators, all of it. What he saw, what he was told to write, what he refused to write. It wasn't easy. It cost him friends on that force. But when the dust settled and Marlow needed somebody to help rebuild a department that had rotted from the top, the state had a pretty good idea who they could trust. Last anybody heard, they were calling him Chief Doyle. Funny how that works. The man who tried to do right when it was hard and pointless and no one was rewarding him for it. He's the one who ended up with the chief's office. And the man who spent his whole career protecting his son ended up with nothing. Turns out the badge was never really the power. The power was always whether you'd do the right thing when the powerful were watching and when they weren't. I saved one conversation for the end, because it's the one that matters most. That night, after the boy was stable and Chase was in recovery and the troopers had gone home, Colonel Solomon Tate sat with his daughter in the hospital cafeteria. 2 cups of bad coffee. The most powerful cop in the state, and the surgeon who'd outshone every one of his officers that day. And Maya said the thing she'd been holding all afternoon. You taught me to put my hands up, Daddy, when I was 16. You sat me down, and you taught me how to survive a traffic stop. She wrapped her hands around the coffee. You ran the whole state police, and you still had to teach me that. How does that... Her voice caught. How did that not break you? Teaching your own daughter that your own people might hurt her. Colonel Tate was quiet for a long time. It did break me, he finally said. A little. Every father like me, it breaks a little. You give your life to a thing, and then you have to teach your child to survive that same thing. He turned his cup in his hands. But here's what I decided a long time ago, baby. I couldn't fix the whole world by the time you turned 16. I tried. I'm still trying. But I couldn't get it done in time to protect you. So the next best thing I could do was make sure you got home. Every time, so that you'd live long enough to be part of fixing it. He looked at her. And you did more today than I've done in 30 years in this uniform. You know that? Every man at that intersection had power. Me, the chief, the troopers, and not one of us was the best person standing there. You were. The woman they put in cuffs was the only one who helped the boy who was bleeding and the boy who was lying. That's not power, Maya. Power's easy. That's something else. That's the thing I was always trying to protect. Not just so you'd survive. So that would survive. In you. And Maya Tate, who hadn't cried through the crash or the cuffs or the long afternoon, finally put her head down on the cafeteria table and cried. Her father put his hand on the back of her head, the way fathers do. And neither of them said anything else, because there wasn't anything else that needed saying. So here's what I want to leave you with. And I want you to really hear this one. The chief's son asked a question that afternoon. Do you know who my father is? He thought it was a trump card. He thought a name could win any fight, fix any wreck, erase any truth. He'd watched it work his whole life. And the answer that walked up to him taught him the thing that men like that never learn until it's far too late. It doesn't matter who your father is. It never did. What matters is who you are when you think no one with more power than you is watching. Chase Dunlap, with all his father's protection, was the smallest person at that intersection. And Maya Tate, in handcuffs with blood on her lip, was the biggest. Not because of who her father was. Her father didn't make her stop and save the life of the boy who mocked her. Nobody made her do that. She did that because of who she was, and no name, no badge, no chief, no colonel can give you that or take it away. You either have it or you don't, and the test comes when you least expect it. At an intersection, in a lobby, on an airplane, anywhere. So tell me down in the comments. And be honest, because I think we all know the answer somewhere. If you'd been at that intersection, which person would you have been? The chief, who decided the truth before he looked. The young officer, who knew the truth and had to find the nerve to say it out loud. The delivery driver, with the little voice telling him to keep his head down? Or the doctor, who helped the people who hurt her, because that's just who she was? There's no shame in it. We've all been the delivery driver at least once, sitting there with the truth in our hands and a little voice telling us it's not our fight. The only thing that matters is the next time. Tell me about your next time. And if this story got its hooks in you, if you felt it when that black SUV pulled up and the chief's face fell apart, do me one favor before you go. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn the notifications on, because the next story is already loaded and it's going to find you exactly where you live. But before you click away, remember this one thing. The people who lean on, "Do you know who my father is?" are telling you they've got nothing of their own. The ones worth knowing never have to say a word about their fathers. They just stop and help the person who's bleeding. Be that one. I'll see you in the next one.